Hey guys, welcome back to 6 Hearts on 6 Acres. Today we are going to talk about perennial plants. Perennials are plants that come back every single year. So you're going to plant these plants one time and you're going to eat from them year after year after year. I have a few different perennials in my garden. My favorite plant that I have in here is my asparagus. So let's go take a walk over there and check those out. Asparagus plants have about a 20-year lifespan. So you're gonna plant these. You have to have a little bit of patience because once you plant your asparagus plants, typically people plant them from 2-year crowns, but you cannot harvest them for 2 years after that. So you do have to have some patience when you first put them in, but the payoff is well worth it because you will have harvests year after year after year of delicious, healthy asparagus. And I'm over here looking at my bed and I have several that I'm going to be able to harvest with you today. So let me turn you around and show you what my asparagus bed looks like. These are how asparagus grow. They kind of just look like you sat them there in the bed. It's a little bit funny. You can see I have already harvested several. You just break them off at the level of the soil. Like I said, asparagus are planted by crowns. You put those crowns really deep in the ground and then you cover them up. And then when you start growing asparagus, let me find a baby asparagus because they do reseed themselves as well. All right, so this plant right here is a baby asparagus. It was planted in my garden by a bird or the wind. When the asparagus go to seed, they form little berries. And the birds tend to eat those berries, and then I have asparagus growing throughout my garden, and I'm super glad because it's a weed that I love to have. A weed is any plant growing where you don't necessarily want it, but this one is underneath my trellis, and I'd say that it is the very perfect spot for it to grow. So I'm going to leave it, and because it was started in seed, in 3 years, I'm going to be able to start harvesting asparagus from that location. But you saw how skinny and pencil thin that asparagus is. Obviously, I'm not going to harvest asparagus at that point. There's not much to it. But when asparagus is like that, you just let it grow. It grows really tall and produces these really beautiful fern-like fronds. And when it's doing that, it's giving energy so that it builds a really good root system, so that these plants can live for 20 years. Once that root system is built, then you start getting really thick, beautiful, harvestable asparagus like these ones that I have here in the garden ready to go. Let's go ahead and harvest a few of those together. There are just tons of little asparagus popping out of this garden right now. I will be able to harvest these asparagus for about 3 weeks, and then they will start getting thin. Once your asparagus are thinner than a pencil, you no longer harvest them, and you let them start putting their energy back into those roots again so that you have a great harvest again the next year. All right, the next perennial that we come to in my garden is rhubarb. This rhubarb was given to me by my parents. They split it off of their plants that they have at home and put 2 of them into my garden here. I don't know that they're in a great location. I think that they need a little bit more sun because I get enough usually for 1 rhubarb by a year, and that's about it. Let me show you these plants real quick, and I actually looked down and saw something really interesting, so I'll talk to you through that as well. These are my 2 rhubarb plants. You can tell this one right here looks way healthier than this one. It's just a lot bigger. But when I look at this rhubarb plant, I spy this. This is a rhubarb flower, which means my rhubarb is starting to bolt. Once your rhubarb bolts, you don't want to harvest anymore. And I haven't harvested anything from this rhubarb plant yet. So I am going to find that stem. You can see we're going to follow it down to the bottom. And I'm going to break that off. Because I don't want my rhubarb to go to flower yet. I still want to be able to harvest. I probably should go ahead and harvest that rhubarb this week since it is trying to bolt on me. even though we're not to our average last frost date, we have been having really warm day temperatures. I think one day this week it's even supposed to be into the 80s already. So rhubarb doesn't like those warm temperatures. It will still continue to grow, but very slowly, and you don't want to harvest it after that point. So we're going to get our harvest in now before my rhubarb goes to waste and get our one pie of the year. We love strawberry rhubarb pie. It's so delicious. Rhubarb on its own is very sour, so the strawberries really help to sweeten and balance it out. The next perennial that we come to in my garden is thyme. Thyme is an herb that's really delicious, used in a lot of your from scratch cooking. I moved my thyme this year because it was in a bed that I was moving to a different location. So I tried to dig it out really deep and move it into this spot, but it didn't. Some of it ended up dying in the process, but a lot of it is still alive, and I've already harvested some of it this year, so let me show it to you. This plant right here is thyme, and these leaves smell incredible. Like, just touching them, my hand is going to smell good for the next 30 minutes. So you see a little bit of these like stick looking parts. These are the parts of the plant that didn't survive the transplant, but there's still a lot of healthy, viable plant here. Oh, and look, it's starting to flower as well. I still eat my thyme when it flowers. I even use those flowers in my cooking. They're delicious. They just have a little bit less of a mild taste than the thyme does. I started that thyme from seed 3 years ago, but you can also buy a transplant from your local garden center and throw that in your garden, and you're gonna have thyme every single year from here on out. All right, and then next in my bed, the next plant in my beds that is perennial is chives. We love this plant. I just put it in last year and it stayed pretty small, but I was able to harvest several, but it came back this year with a vigor, and it is beautiful, and right now it's blooming. I'm so excited to use these chive blossoms in my recipes for the next few weeks. So let me turn you around and show you these chives. I did not start these by seed. I bought them from my local garden center, and I think that is the easiest way to grow chives, is just to buy them as a plant. Onions take a really long time to start from seed, so I would definitely recommend just purchasing this one. So here are my chive plants. This is 2 plants, and they are really big and beautiful, and look at all these blossoms. So we are going to be definitely using those in the next week or so to make some really delicious chive blossom butter and whatever else I can find on Pinterest. I've seen people use them in a lot of different ways, in omelets and spring rolls, so they are going to be a big part of our meals for the next few weeks. I throw those in my dinner almost every single night. I just come out here and either rip off a handful if I don't have my scissors on me, but the best way is definitely just to cut a big chunk out and chop it up and throw it on whatever we're having for the night. It's got a really mild oniony flavor, and it's really delicious. Oregano is the next perennial herb that I have in my garden. I started this by seed, I think 3 years ago, and I have been able to share it with many people. It multiplies and takes over, and it can really fill up a whole bed if you're not careful with it. But it's super easy to dehydrate, it's easy to freeze, make a lot of herb butter with it, and I froze some with basil and olive oil last year and used those in a lot of our recipes, and it's really delicious. We really like it. It smells so good, and it even flowers, and I'm able to use it in my bouquets in the middle of the summer. So this herb is oregano. You can use this in so many different kinds of recipes. It's really delicious in all types of food, but let me show you what it does. See all of these plants? That is oregano, and it just kind of takes over and spreads all throughout the area it's in. Right now, this oregano is about 6 inches tall, but by come the end of summer, it's going to be like 2 foot tall. It turns into a really big plant, and it produces these really pretty, beautiful purple blooms. I'll insert a picture of those here in the middle of the summer. They're great for pollinators, and they're really pretty but to bring inside and put in your bouquets in the house as well. Fruit is oftentimes a perennial too. We have in our garden raspberries and blackberries, and we just started them last year from plants that we purchased at Lowe's on the clearance rack for like $3. And let me show you what this raspberry has done. So this was one single stalk when I purchased it, and it has turned into a really good sized plant, but it has also thrown off babies all over the place. There are multiple raspberry plants now. They are everywhere. So I'm really looking forward to a giant raspberry harvest this year. And then my next plant here is a single blackberry stem. It actually just started throwing up another stalk this week. You can see there's grass all around it. I need to get some of that cleared out and probably topped with a little bit of compost. Oh look, I actually just spied another blackberry coming up. So I have another little baby coming up right here. I'm gonna get this area cleaned out and I may even find some more. We're gonna add another perennial fruit to our garden this year. I actually have a couple in my asparagus bed, and that is strawberries. But I only have like 3, and so it's not enough to feed my family any sustenance at all, but my kids think they're fun to come out here and grab. So we have a store called Sutherland's that is close to us, and they do what they call an early bird sale every year, and they sell their plants at incredible prices. I got 2 big hanging baskets of strawberry plants. I think they were $6 a piece, and I think there's 6 strawberries in each one. So I'm gonna plant a bed of strawberries today. Sometimes strawberries are planted as crowns, like bare root crowns. They are less expensive that way, and you want to plant those at the very beginning of spring. But what I have is actual plants that are already greened out, and so they don't like a heavy frost, and so I waited until now to put them out. They have been sitting outside, and then any nights that we've gone too cold, I've just taken them inside. These are the strawberries that we're going to be putting into the garden today. Alright, so I have my strawberry plants out of the container, and I am just going to separate each of these crowns with a good amount of roots intact. Okay, I actually got 7 strawberry plants, and I want to show you when you are planting strawberry plants. You have your green leafies on top, and then if you can see right here in between my thumb and forefinger is the top of the crown. You want to make sure that you don't cover that up because you will suffocate the plant. It needs to be above ground. All right, so for about $12, I got 14 strawberry plants that are already growing and healthy. They have a good root system already. So I'm really happy with that. And here in just probably like 4-ish months, they're gonna put on their second production of flowers and we will let them produce. Strawberries produce for about 4 years, but the really cool thing about them is that they grow runners. Runners are kind of like daughter plants, so they are reproducing themselves, and that plant will root, and then you have a brand new strawberry plant. So even though that original mother plant only grows for 4 years, you're going to have a continuous supply of new healthy strawberries to continue your bed on for years and years and years. It's good advice to not let your plant grow runners the first year that you plant it, because you want it to focus on root production. So you just pinch all those runners off. You don't want them to take the strength and the energy and the nutrients away from the mother plants. But after year 2, you are good to let them grow. And this bed, although it looks kind of sparse right now, next year will be full of plants. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that we have enough strawberries. Probably, honestly, with just one bed, it's a 6x3 bed, is just going to be enough for fresh eating for us. And then I will go to our local berry patches to do you-pick and gather enough strawberries so that I can make jam and preserve and freeze and do all kinds of things with the strawberries that we like to eat throughout the whole entire year. I'm going to be adding a new perennial plant into my garden this year. Have you ever seen this? Outside of YouTube, I had never seen one of these growing before. These are artichoke plants. I started these from seed, and they have been growing for like 8 weeks now. They were super easy to start from seed, but artichokes need vernalization. So what that means is, in order to flower for their first year, they have to have 50-degree temperatures for about 6 weeks. And so I have kind of been babying these plants, taking them in and out, making sure that they had those 50-degree temperatures for 6 weeks, but also that they didn't have to go through anything less than 32 degrees, because they're kind of babies and they can't take that when they're in this growing stage. The U.S. changed their growing zones this last year. So my zone went here in Southwest Missouri from 6B to 7A, and artichokes can grow in 7A. So I'm super excited to add these to my garden this year, and fingers crossed that I can get them to perennialize and come back on their own next year, and that they produce buds or flowers, which are the artichokes that you harvest before they open up this year. I am super excited. My whole family, my kids love artichokes. They can put them away so fast. And so I am really praying that these do well in my garden and that I have them for years to come. These plants get ginormous. They're recommended to plant 4 foot apart. I don't typically follow plant spacing, and I'm not going to today either. I'm not going to give them that much room in my garden, because that's a lot of room, and I'm not 100% sure that they will perennialize and even need that much room. So I'm going to give them probably 2.5 to 3 feet, and then I will plant stuff in between them this first year as they're growing. But I am really praying that these do excellent in my garden this year, and that we are able to eat artichokes for years to come from these same plants. I'm growing 2 different varieties. This one is the green globe, and these smaller ones, I started them later. I think they were called Wonder Artichoke. I'm not 100% sure. If I'm wrong, I'll put it down here. But I think that they were called the Wonder Artichoke. I'm going to go ahead and get these planted in my garden. I decided to put 5 of them in. I think this first year you can expect to get 5 to 10 artichokes if I did a good job of keeping them at that 50-degree temperature. So that's what I'm hoping for. Thank you so much for watching today as I walked you through the perennials that are in my garden, and as we added a few new ones for this coming year. Perennials can be an investment, but they are an investment, in my opinion, that is completely worth it. They add a lot of beauty to your garden, and they add a lot of sustenance to plants that you don't have to put the work in for every single year. And there's so many herbs that grow as a perennial here in zone 7A, previously 6B, that can add so much flavor to the foods that you cook for your family. So I hope I encourage you today to go and put some perennial plants in your garden that you can enjoy for year after year after year. If you like this video, I ask that you please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this, and give this video a like because it really helps out my channel. Thank you so much for being here today. May God bless your garden as you work in it with a hugely abundant harvest for your family.